She was a Trump-loving small business owner. She had a pool cleaning company right down the road here in San Diego. She was an Air Force vet who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and she lost her life trying to prevent Biden from becoming president. She had other priorities, like fighting overseas. And maybe, since all politics is local, all she knew was that she lives in a state that seems to care more about her toxic whiteness than her toxic brokenness.
If you find yourself identifying with the people who stormed the Capitol building with guns and bombs and holding an entire nation hostage because they didn't get the results that they wanted, but you are perfectly fine with the United States bombing the living crap out of the entirety of the Middle East, maybe you need to take a hard look at yourself and find out why it is that you identify with one and not the other.
So here's the thing with Marc, Shem, and Eve.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Mark Samuels here. Welcome back to So Here's the Thing, solo edition, powered by Kelly Noir Pictures. I am very, very happy to be back with you guys. And, well, today, we are going to be going into some pretty heavy subject matter. We are going to be talking about terrorism. We're going to be talking about torture. So this is just a content warning slapping right at the front right now. If that's something that may trigger you, then, you know, I apologize about that. These are important topics, but if it's too much for you, then, hey, why don't you go ahead and skip next to the next video, and we'll see you next week. In the meantime, because this is going to be very heavy subject matter, I wanted to make sure that all of you at home who are paying attention, make sure that I don't lose you guys. And look, I don't really ever want to just go in on this podcast and talk about all of this heavy shit all the time. Sometimes I just want to have a decent conversation with humans. That's actually what I miss most about this whole COVID situation in the first place, just being able to sit around and talk about some stuff. And I had high hopes for this year, just like I think a lot of you guys had high hopes for this year. In fact, I made a list of things that I wanted to talk about as soon as we got back to So Here's the Thing. And now I have to talk about terrorists. Here is a list of things that I wanted to get to, but will not have a chance to get to. And to make sure that we're on time, I'm gonna light this here match to make sure that we stay within our time constraints. All right, number one thing, here we go. Of course it would light on the first try. All right, Stacey Abrams. Shout out to Stacey Abrams. You getting your flowers right now, girl. All right, because you led one hell of a race in Georgia to make sure that Raphael Warnock ended up winning in the Senate. And we are proud of you, girl. We love you. Thank you so much for making sure that our democracy is kept intact. I can't wait to see you as president of the United States. You know, these guys were talking about canceling the Grammy Awards or postponing the Grammy Awards. And the first thing that I thought was, why stop there? Yo, cancel everything, man. Look, not only are we in a worldwide pandemic in which hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people around the world have been killed by this thing, but like, honestly, yo, read the room. We don't want to see rich people giving each other trophies right now. It's 2021. Even if that flew in 2020, like, I just don't think that this is where we're at, man. I don't think this is it. I don't want to see it. Cancel all the award shows, cancel the Oscars, the Golden Globes, every goddamn thing, man. We don't want it. And yeah, I'm going to watch it. You know I'm going to watch it. All right, whatever. Wonder Woman 1984. I actually wrote an entire essay long thing about this because I sat here hyping this movie for an entire year. I forced my entire family to watch it on Christmas after I spent my own money to go and get this on Amazon Prime, and it was trash. Yo, how did this happen? Patty Jenkins, how did this happen? Who was gonna tell me that Gal Gadot can't act? I didn't even think about it. But I guess in the first movie, she never really had to do many dramatic scenes, and this movie was full of them, and she can't do them, all right? This needs to be stopped. Somebody needs to stop this movie from happening, or get a new lead, or get a new director, or whatever. But obviously, Chris Pine, you're cool. You can come to the cookout. Everybody loves you. And lastly, New Year's Eve this year was mad quiet. I just spent it inside with my partner, and honestly, like, I'm here for that. Yo, I think we should just do that all the time. Maybe I'm just getting old, but it was the most fun I've had in a long time. I'm not, you know, shout out to everybody who does the New Year's Eve parties and stuff, and a big not shout out to all of you who continue to do New Year's Eve parties. But I really enjoyed the quietness of it. We didn't drink, really. We just kind of stayed around, conversed, spent time, you know, hollered at family. It was really sweet. And I think that that is exactly what this year needed. So thank you, 2020. Good riddance, and here's to a better 2021. We'll see. I don't know. It's been to a rough start. We'll see. All right, now I got to do this entire video with the smell of matches, burnt matches in the entire place. Oh, Lord of mercy, why did I do this? Yesterday, we talked about the attack on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., in which a group of hundreds of white terrorists descended upon the United States Capitol, went in, looted, terrorized the place, apparently had bombs, were very armed. Cops helped them inside, and now because of that, you know, Trump doesn't have Twitter. I guess that was the fallout of that. Apparently, I've been doing a little digging, and some people have been arrested, but not nearly as many people as should be arrested, and they taking a sweet-ass time with it. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today, we are here to talk about the media. Why is it that the media has such a hard time identifying white terrorists as terrorists?
As the fallout from that insurrection continues to rattle the nation.
Worst school trip ever.
I made sure that I came prepared. I have notes and stuff this time. Terrorism, according to the internet, is the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. I'm pretty sure that the events of January 6, 2021 are exactly within the range of that definition. This is the exact definition of what these people are. They threatened and issued violence in order to get their own political gains. We already might be flawed when we start to look at what the idea of terrorism is, what the idea of a terrorist is. Now, anybody who knows anything about anything would know that as a millennial, my idea of what the loose definition of terrorist or terrorism was deeply and drastically and dramatically shaped by the experiences that I had growing up. All right. Namely, I'm talking about 9/11. After 9/11, the world definitely started leaning heavily towards a very different definition of terrorism. The only thing I really know is the stuff that I paid attention to, and that's movies. In movies, terrorists all looked vaguely Eastern European, and then September 11th, 2001 happened, and every single terrorist was Middle Eastern in movies after that. All right? When we think about the word terrorist, a lot of us get the idea of a man in a turban or women in hijabs or Middle Eastern-ish cultural identities, and with bombs strapped to their chest and yelling something in Farsi or maybe possibly Arabic. And that's kind of the weird image that we get from it. But that isn't even really a threat to us. I mean, like, no, seriously, think about it. Everything that we've had leading up to this idea of terrorists in the Middle East is based on our own invasions of the Middle East. Even 9/11 was a definitive response to American intervention within the Middle East and their politics. We have had so much more terrorism on our own soil, North American soil, and we're not even considering it terrorism. When I was watching the news and we all watched what happened on January 6th, one of the fastest ways that they downplayed everything that was going on was by using different coded language in order to make us seem less afraid of these people. All right? They used words like right-wing militia, insurrectionists, protesters. Now, these people are a lot of things, but they are not any of those words. The second you have a bomb and you start invading a Capitol building, you're no longer in any of those ranges. That is 100% terrorism. Shoot, we did a whole movie franchise about it with Gerard Butler. Does the image of the terrorist in question allow us to justify the means of retribution? When we sit there and we think of this picture of Saddam Hussein or Osama bin Laden, we immediately think, well, these people strapped themselves with bombs and got on an airplane and killed thousands of people. So, yeah, of course we're allowed to torture them to get information. That's how we end the war. But when we see what our own population looks like doing the exact same thing, immediately, I think that a lot of people start to see themselves in these people. And because of that, we immediately have a weird response where we feel like retribution should be a little softer. We should try to identify with them more. We should try to understand what it is that they want a little more. We should try to psychoanalyze them to see how it is that we can make sure that this doesn't happen. Why is it that we are so hell-bent on trying to understand the psyche of crazy white men? I've never understood that. Probably because I'm not a crazy white man. I'm a crazy black man. That's different. When we see ourselves on screen, we immediately see what it is that we're capable of. And that could scare a lot of people. But I think that it should scare a lot of people, because the fact is, since January 1994 till about May 2020, there was a study on CSIS, that is the Center for Strategic and International Studies. All right. This fantastic article was written about terrorism, domestic, the ones that are happening in the United States and affecting people on United States soil. And between 1994 and 2020, there has been 893 terrorist plots and attacks in the United States. Now, here's the kicker. Almost none of them have been by any version of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or anything like that. There's been a small fraction, but most of it has been by right-wing white men. That's a fact. All right. The fact is that when we give a different definition of terrorism to one ethnic group versus another ethnic group, what we do is we wipe away the fear from that particular group that we don't want to make seem so dangerous. And that actually puts us in harm's way. We have a tendency as a nation to lump in Trump supporters into a weird stereotype. You know the stereotype, uneducated, Southern with a twang, rednecks. And that actually hurts the goal of getting rid of white supremacy, because it cartoonizes the idea of white supremacy. White supremacy is not a Southern invention. It's not even an American invention. Now, like I said before, I'm not really here for the whole party lines thing. In terms of the left-wing and right-wing terrorist groups, right-wing and left-wing militias, the truth is that when I looked up all of the left-wing terrorist plots and attacks, there really isn't many. I mean, a lot of people have this idea of Antifa being a terrorist organization, but as far as any studies go, there just isn't enough evidence to support that idea. The question is, where do black folks fit into this? When we talk about terrorism, it would be really weird for me to talk about this subject without bringing up groups like the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers were easily regarded as a terrorist organization. True story, the NRA actually supported gun control right in the late 60s and early 70s because black people were starting to get themselves armed up and joining militia groups like the Black Panthers. And so they immediately in California organized to make sure that there was a gun control so that there weren't automatic weapons out on the street, which is like the literal opposite of what the NRA does. They were just petrified of a black terrorist organization. The things about black groups and militias, kind of like the Black Panthers, or what people assume Black Lives Matter to be, is that a lot of these things are usually very community focused. Black people tend to organize for their own protection. Even if you look at a lot of gangs early on, which I don't like associating gangs with terrorist organizations because they have their own definitions. And honestly, the second you start listing the Bloods and the Crips as a terrorist organization, then you need to start listing literally every version of the Irish, Italian, and Russian mafias that have been running in the United States for hundreds of years. All right. But the fact is that even those gangs usually start with a benevolent purpose of community organization and protection from that same system that smacks them down in the head and makes sure that they don't progress anywhere. I'm literally talking about the fact that Black Panthers had to organize in order to protect our people from the exact same police officers that allowed white militias to invade the Capitol. We live in different Americas, all right? The rules are different. And part of the reason is because we have this obsession as a culture with white rage. We have this obsession as a culture of looking at white rage and looking at why it is that these people are so angry instead of actually giving them retributions for their actions. This stuff happens constantly. And instead of actually dealing with them, how we deal with terrorists, we spend time psychoanalyzing the situation and usually giving these people a slap on the wrist, if anything. What we need to do is we need to demystify the idea of what is a terrorist. We need to make sure that we are not making it into a racial caricature, and we are calling a spade and making sure that we are calling action as we see it. Storming the Capitol with bombs is terrorism. If a country is going to talk about being law and order, they need to have that same set of laws and order for everybody. If you're going to sit there and torture somebody in Guantanamo Bay, I'm going to need that exact same energy for every single one of those people who self-identified themselves on camera while storming a Capitol building of the United States. And my message doesn't really just go to the people. It also goes to media and broadcast. All right. This goes to all the news reporters. Ladies and gentlemen of CNN, Fox, MSNBC, whatever you come from. They are not insurgents. They're not protesters. They are not a far-right militia. They're terrorists. And I don't care why they're terrorists. I don't need a deep 10-minute deep dive into the ideology of white supremacists. I'm Black. I know the ideology of white supremacists. They don't want me here. End of story. All right. So the next time you decide that we're going to look into the soul of what drives these people, maybe shut the f up. We cannot, as a country, continue on like this is a normal occurrence every single day. Otherwise, it will be a normal occurrence every single day. I'm Mark Samuels. This is So Here's the Thing podcast. I'm so glad to be back with you guys on the airwaves, and I can't wait until I have my brother and my sister here with me. And to everybody, we love you. We hope that you're safe, and we'll see you next week, beautiful people. Sex in the City is getting a reboot. I don't know who that's for, and I don't want that. Don't do that. Miley Cyrus made an entire album of rock covers, and I am just here to say, please retire. Miley Cyrus. No, don't retire. But like, honestly, don't. It was terrible. It sounded like the worst version of karaoke, and I'm just not here for it. All right, just stick to doing your country thing. You're good at the country thing. You are intrinsically bad at every genre of music except for country. You're not as good as a pop star. You're horrible at rapping. You're not it as a rock star either. Just fucking do country. Everybody loves you in the country thing. I bumped the climb. All right, just keep doing that. Elon Musk is now the richest person in the world, which gives me so many more reasons to hate this guy, and we will do an entire episode dedicated to billionaires and how much I think that they should not exist. But I guess that's news, so we will have to talk about that when our country's not under attack, I guess. Shout out to Kamala Harris being inaugurated as the first Black and first Indian American to the vice presidency. All right. I am not a fan of Kamala Harris. Anybody who knows me knows that that's no secret, but I am here for Black excellence in any way that we can take it. And honestly, you know what? That's one of the highest seats in power in the United States, or, you know, what at least we think is the highest seat anyway. So I'm here for it. Go get your flowers, girl. You can't come to my cookout, but you're invited to a lot of people's, and that means a lot, all right? I'm here for the inspiration for the next woman, Black woman, to become president of the United States, and that is significant, all right? So shout out to you.